I'm here to talk about a change. I'm here to invite you to a change, a shift so significant that it has a greater impact on improving the personal, business, and career and community life than the introduction of commercial email in the 1980s. I can feel it. Now, we will also share with you 4 keys that will help you make this shift. And, for today only, a starter kit. You can leave with a starter kit, so you can be part of this shift. Now, before we talk about these 4 keys and the starter kit, we should talk about the impact that's being felt already. Basically, if you want to waste less time, then take on this new conversation. This is the authentic conversation. If you want to have more fun, if you want to get more employment, if you want to have more meaning in your life, if you want to have better time when you're in an elevator, then be part of this shift. Now, when you think of conversations with a stranger, I wonder if the idea of adventure comes to mind. Let me share one with you. Last weekend, I met a guy named Bill at a reception. My first question is, what's your connection, what's your draw, what's your connection to this event? What's your draw? He said, I have no draw, no connection, because my wife is on the board. My second question, and you'll notice, we're not wasting any time. I said, what is your gig? What does you do? He said, I work on water control, water quality issues internationally. And then he talked a bit more about that. And then he turned back and said, what do you do? And I said, well, I help with making conversations work. And why are you laughing? And then he shared this with me. He said, you never know where your next business opportunity is going to come from. And you never know where the next casual conversation you have will lead you. And he backs it up with this story. A senior principal from his company was on a plane and decided to talk to the guy beside him, who was a total stranger. That conversation touched on a need of that stranger, and they went a bit deeper. A year and a half later, that stranger contacted them, and that became the largest contract that company has ever had. So when I get that kind of impact, or hear that kind of impact from a conversation, I just get ready for my next adventure. That's why I call it an adventure. We never know what that person has to offer. It's right here for most of us. Now, the reason I say it's most of us, because some people say, oh, I'm an introvert. We can get over that. So, speaking of that, how can we get past that? Well, maybe the question is, what stands in the way of making this shift? So just below the surface of everyone here, there's a pool, picture it, a pool of stories and experiences that some people want to share. But when you address people with saying, hey, how you doing? Are you having a good time? People will never engage with you authentically, and if they choose to respond and with something like real, they'll often not listen to. Second thing, technology in the last 25 years, for the most part, has been ambushed or sideswiped authentic conversation. So, now we come to why I'm here and why you're here. We have a count, we have a measure for my success and your support. And that is, the next moment you have with a stranger, your conversation will shift past the superficial, and you will tap in to that pool. You do have a choice. It's coming up later. But first, let me take you to a grocery store. Now, in that grocery store, I've watched it. Up to 1,000 accomplished, interesting people, eventually, and mostly strangers, eventually will line up and stand in a stilted vacuum of authentic conversation. Now, I've also noticed that sometimes in those lines, and I also consider that a wasted opportunity, but not everybody wastes it, because I've seen that sometimes realtors get housing listings. And over here, I've heard of a speaker who got a speaking gig from those lineups. So it's possible. So let's take a look at what is possible to make that shift from, here's your word for the day, vapid to meaningful. And I don't want you to come up to somebody and say, do you know what vapid means? So here's the keys, 4 keys. Key number 1, less is more. Now, if we realize that an authentic engagement doesn't need to take hours, it can be in minutes with some management. That's encouraging. Number 2, you saw the honeybees? The honeybees were on a previous slide from somebody. Now, the honeybees are prized for their efficient use of a hive. And hives are kept these days. So key number 2, I know you're counting. When we are equipped with 3 things, a few good questions. Second, an open spirit. And third, an appreciation for people's busy lives. Then our experiences will be with people, will have them feeling refreshed, both of us feeling refreshed, energized, jazzed sometimes, and even buzzed. Oh, I have believers in this crowd. Say amen. I feel so good. So, get ready for key number 3. How we craft or frame our questions is really essential in holding someone's attention. Key number 4. How we respond to anybody is also amazingly important. 3 elements: our body language. Second one, our spirit. And our words, the words we use. I've seen people on buses, man, they just shut me down. They're reading their book, they don't want to be engaged at all. So, let me bring Jason into this. And when you hear this little story of Jason, I want you to watch for about 3 things. One is the quality of questions that he's asked. 2, what words he uses to respond. And 3, the reaction he gets. I met Jason at a sustainable business network that I host. And I immediately saw that he brought a sense of freshness, energy, and curiosity to any of the conversations in the room. And I thought, you're my man. I want you to be part of my schools program where we bring speakers into schools and the students interview the speakers. Have you got that? The students interview the speakers because the students need to understand, and they want to understand, how the wider world works. Now, the schools program is a very cool thing. It's a microcosm of how this new conversation works. Because the students create questions around themes that are important. And a couple of those themes are things like surviving challenges, dealing with surprises, holding the media's attention. And when the students ask questions around those things, they're engaged. And they see this as an absolute honor to talk to somebody and get the real goods. So that's how that works. And one of the speakers was an athletic coach and a counselor. But when he was a kid, his parents gave him no support. And so this kid in grade 7 in a northern Vancouver Island reserve asked him this question, grade 7. He says, with the lack of moral support you got from your parents, did it cause you to go after your dreams just to show them what you were capable of? Oh, that's pretty good. We're getting down to an important question. This is the crux. How many of you want to make that shift from the vapid to the meaningful, from the superficial to the extraordinary? I'm waiting. How many here? If you put your hands up. Hallelujah. Absolutely. You have the spirit. Because we're talking about a shift. I have on the back of your name tag, with that spirit, we have put 5 questions on the back. That is the starter kit. So that next time you're with a stranger, which happens to be at lunchtime or at breaks, you can engage with wonderful questions. With the hive we have here at TEDx, the possibilities are limitless. Say it again.